Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to route out this Lional Richtea. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. With the hello, is it tea you're looking for? Now we're going to put it on this teapot, and eventually once we've done all the routing out of the main section, we'll simply cut it out on a scroll saw. You could obviously leave it out on the back if you want to. This is nice thick recycled pine, is this? This was started life as a table originally, and now we're going to use it to make our Lional Richtea project. Now for me, as always, we've got our image already there. We've placed it onto our wood, and I use nice carbon paper underneath, and literally just draw around this with a pen or a pencil. I prefer to use a pen just because it shows up a lot better. So you literally just draw around it like we've shown you there with your carbon paper, and it just comes out nice and easy like so. So there's our little template ready for today. Now take your time to shade in the areas that we want to remove. That way you're not going to go away, come back and start removing the face, and that would be the end of your little project. No need to shade in the lettering because we understand what we're doing there. Just be careful you don't take out the centres of the letters. So take your time just to shade in the bits that you want to remove. Now for this one, I like to use my CNC bits as always. They come in different degrees. I'm going to use a 10 degree today. Quite narrow, really. I'm going to get it, maybe not. There we go. Very pointed piece, because we do have some really thin lines. Small areas like this, it's just going to be one chance around the nose, and then we'll go inside lettering, remember, inset on this one, so up to the line, up to the line. Never route out on the line, because something as small as this, if you were to go on the line, you would alter the size of that, obviously by the thickness of the 3.175 bit, depending on how much depth you use. So up to the line. If it was outset lettering, you'd route up to the line, inset lettering, up to the line that way, if that makes sense. I like to go around all the lettering first, around all the image, with our little CNC bit. They do have that small shaft, a Dremel size, so that will fit a Dremel if you want to use the router attachment. However, for a 1/4 inch router, you need an adapter reducer collet, 6.35. You literally just slot your router bit, your CNC bit into there. That's now got a 1/4 inch shaft, and that will fit a router no problem. I'm going to work on a 3mm depth. I made myself a little gauge like this. You can purchase gauges from eBay, Amazon or so and so. And I know that smallest one is 3mm should I say, because it's the same thickness as that CNC bit. So we'll set this in the router, set it to that depth, and that's the same depth we'll use all the way around to do all our lettering, and so. Once we've done that, we have to remove out the inside of the letterings and all this shaded out area. For that, I'm going to use end milling bits. These are fantastic. I've used these on most of my projects. We'll get a nice small one that we know can fit inside all these smaller areas to remove those sections of the wood. Now on these smaller ones, you could just use a CNC bit. We'll see how it comes out. I use a lot of recycled wood, and I've certainly have no issues with it. And like I say, once we've done it all, we'll cut it out. We'll either put paint inside these, paint inside all the letters, and give it a quick sanding over to make them stand out. Or we'll see how it's going. We might even pop resin in and sand it down, and then flood coat the full piece with nice shiny resin. We'll see how it progresses. Like I say, it might just be paint inside those and paint around there. Okay, let's pop this into our router. We'll set it to 3mm, and we'll start routing this one out. Right, you can see from that we've more or less gone round all the lines with our CNC bit. Now lettering is not one of my favourite things to do, but we'll straighten that up. As long as we've got our main lines with our CNC bits, we know when we come in with the other bit, we're not going to lose anything and break off. So it's looking rough and ready at this moment in time, but hopefully when we pop on our end milling bits and clean out the inside of these letters and remove all this section and that bit at the top there, a little bit more about it. Remember, we will come in with the Dremel with a nice flexi shaft and an engraving bit, something similar to this, and give it all a general tidy out as well. And hopefully it'll look a bit better than it does this moment in time. Okay, let's pop on an end milling bit. I'm going to go for the smallest one there is. They do come with these little barriers on now. Don't worry if you order some without the barriers on, should I say. I believe there's one in here. Yeah, it's exactly the same piece more or less, with or without the barrier. And it's just a simple case of removing the CNC bit, and you push that into there, like so, up to that barrier, so it's a nice flush fit. We'll pop that into the router, and we'll remove some certain sections here, so we could set it to that depth inside the eye, or, obviously, we'll use our bit of wood again. Set it to the same depth, and we'll start clearing out all the inside of the lettering, and the moustache, and the ears. So, okay, let's start clearing this one out, and hopefully it'll look a bit better when we come back. Right, we've gone all the way around with those end milling bits, as you can see from that, and it's nicely cleared out the best we want it. Now it looks a bit weird and strange at the moment. Once the paint or resin goes in and fills all this in, it'll look totally different again. Now for this moment in time, I just want to go around and just give it a general tidy up, get to these little corners there, these little bits that we can't quite get in. And as always for me, I like to use a flexi cable, just a cheap eBay special. And on the end, I like to use some engraving bits. You get a box of these, box of 30 for next to nothing. And they are ideal for general cleaning out with. Just find it there somewhere. There we go. And I like to get one with a nice flat bottom on it. Something like this, that I know will fit in there. And we'll just generally just go around, give it all a nice general tidy up. And then we'll be on to quickly cutting it out on a scroll saw. Let's tidy it up first before we get onto the scroll saw inside of things. Right, that's enough general cleaning down and tidying up with the little engraving bits on the end of the flexi cable attached to a router or any rotary tool. And you see that letting's come out a lot better now, and that's ideal for putting our paint in or resin. Remember, we've not quite decided what we're going to put in yet. I'll have a better choice once I've cut it out and see what's what. But for now, that's near enough what we need. Now we're going to cut it out on a scroll saw, just to give the nice shape of the teapot. You could ideally just leave it on here and route out the background by 3 or 4 millimeters, just so the teapot stands up, and leave it just as it is. If you made it a nice proper little shape, you could actually use it as a chopping board of some description. It's definitely thick enough to do that. But for me, I just want to cut it out just because I like to use this scroll saw on some of my little projects. Now blade wise, you get a choice of 3 basically. There is fancier ones, but the 3 basic ones are pin blade like so, and that basically has a pin at both sides. They come on your cheaper swords, and you basically have it set up so it feels smooth on the way down and it's rough on the way up with the teeth. That way you know your blade's the right way, and always have it facing towards you. This will be perfect for this little job here because there's nothing too fancy to cut out. The centerpiece, obviously, we'll drill a pilot hole. Basically just drill a hole with a drill. We pop your blade in and we can cut out that inner section to give us a nice handle. That would be perfect for this one, no problem whatsoever. If you're doing a lot more detailed work, you imagine if you were scroll sawing into the eyes, around the nose, really tight areas, you get what they call a pinless blade. Just about to see that there. There's no pins on that. And that is a clamping mechanism that goes top and bottom. Same again, you want your teeth to the front, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up, and those are really, really delicate pieces. In fact, I don't even get in there. You can just about make out the teeth on that one. Me personally, as always for my projects, these are a love or hate relationship with these blades. They are spiral blades. You only get pinless spiral blades, so make sure your saw will take them. So obviously they clamp top and bottom. Same with these. Smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. But obviously, because they are spiraled, the full length of the blade. There we go. Doesn't matter. There isn't a front and a back, if that makes sense. Good thing about spiral blades, they're ideal for bigger projects. They will cut in any direction. Whereas these, you've got to feed your wood into it, turn your wood, feed it, turn your wood, feed it. Basically, with a spiral, we could just start there and just go all the way around like so, without having to turn the wood the once. Still got to do a pilot hole, remember, to feed that in there. So spiral blades are my choice. Pinless blades is another choice for somebody else, and the pin blade is definitely another choice as well. Okay, we'll pop the spiral blade, Pegasus number 5, on the scroll saw, and then literally just cut this one out quickly. Nothing too fancy. Right, we've cut it out nicely with this Pegasus number 5 spiral blade. It's a good inch thick as this wood, and it certainly has no problems cutting that out. It's a little bit dusty, but the cut itself, I've certainly got no issues with that. So spiral blades, they're not for everybody. You'll either love or hate them, I must say. So there's our general little shape of our teapot. We've done all our routing out now. We've done our cutting out. We've done the tidying down. So I just want to just round this off slightly, just so it's not as sharp. And then we'll get onto the painting or resin side of things. Okay, you can see from that we've rounded those edges off and the back as well. So we've got a better shape than what we had before. Now I have thought about this. Normally on my projects, I would simply just put some black paint into all the routed out sections. Then once that's dry, just sand it over with a nice mouse sander of some description, and that would bring all your lettering nice and crispy. And then I would put my boiled linseed oil on. But on this one, we're going to pop in a bit of resin. Just nice black resin, nothing fancy. We'll fill this up to the maximum. We'll actually overflow it slightly. Normally you could just fill in with resin, nice and delicately, and that would be it. But as we've got some tight lines to do, these smaller lines here, around the cheek and the nose and the mouth, we're hopefully going to fill all those little lines in with black resin, like I say. So we're going to have to overfill it. Once it's all nicely cured, I will definitely leave this for a couple of days to set solid. We'll come in with a sander and sand it all flush to the wood. We'll lose the shine on the resin, obviously, but then we'll flood coat, which is basically just pour resin over the top of the old piece. Should bring that black nice and shiny again, and also give a nice coating on the teapot itself. Okay, so that's enough for now. We'll go and find ourselves some resin and fill this one in. I've just remembered, just before we put the resin in, personally I've done projects where I've not bothered at all, but to stop your resin soaking into the side walls of the routed out area, what they call bleeding, you could also get the same effect with paint. I don't get too much issue with pine, I must be honest. But just to save a couple of seconds work, we're just going to spray a varnish on this. Doesn't have to be fantastic. Basically, all we want to do is seal inside those letters and seal the side walls of all the routed out area. Remember, we're going to sand over all this again, so it doesn't have to be too fantastic. As long as we seal inside those routed out areas, it's best to be safe than leaving it, putting your resin in, and then when you route it all out, sand it all down, shall I say, your sides just won't be as crispy. So for the sake of a couple of seconds, we're just going to spray on. I'm just going to grab a yacht varnish. Any varnish will do. If you're using resin, you could brush in some clear resin first in there, but this is such a small area that will basically fill up with clear resin, not leaving any room for your black resin. So to be safe, a couple of sprays, like so. Let's just give it an all nice coating. As long as we seal the best we can. I'll let that dry and then give it another little quick throwing over. Then I know we've done our little bit regards to sealing those side walls, and then we can simply pop our resin in. We'll definitely go off and do that now. Right, that's all nicely dry now. So all we need to do is basically fill in all the routed out area with resin. Remember, if resin is not your thing, you can do basically the same, just using black paint and sanding it over afterwards. Anyway, for resin, for me today, it's just Vista 1. Resin, all resin comes in two parts, A and a B. A being your resin and B being your hardener. Just check your resins, because some you mix by volume. Mix by volume there. And the ratio, 1 to 1. So same amount of A, same amount of B. Some resins you will mix by weight. So just check your instructions out. Always have your gloves on and a nice mask and plenty of ventilation. Quicks by volume, I basically just have these cheap party cups. Get a pack of 100 for next to nothing. I'll just mark off A, my resin, and how much I think I'm going to need. And obviously, because it's 1 to 1, I want exactly the same of B. Once you've done that, just tip them into each other. Give a nice mixing around, and that's your resin basically mixed. And then we'll pop a little bit of colour in. I'm just going to use acrylic paint, just cheap acrylic paints. I've used these before on previous projects and it works out fine. You don't need a lot, a little dab. If you want a little bit darker, just sneak a little bit more in. And the idea is you're going to fill all this in with the coloured resin and all this, slightly overfilling it so we have a bit of a dome going down. We're going to sand it all down flush with the wood afterwards, and then we'll see what it looks like and hopefully cover the full thing with some clear resin. So I'll mix these two off camera, come back when we put a bit of colour in, and basically we're just going to fill this all in. Right, that's our resin all nicely mixed. Just take your time. Now we're going to pop out a bit of colour in. There's pigments, dyes, powders. There's plenty of choices out there. Whatever you want to do for your colours. I just find cheap acrylic paint works just as good. Now you don't need a lot of it. You'll be able to put in a little squirt in. Like so. That's basically all you need. And hopefully that would turn it a nice black. Like I say, if you want a bit darker, we can always add a little bit more. Quick mix round like that. And that's basically it, really. I want to go a little bit darker, so I'll quickly drop a bit more in and then come back when we're ready to pour it out. Right, so that's all nicely mixed now. That's definitely near enough for what I want. And remember, we've got to fill all this in nice and slowly. We want to make sure we get inside those little tight areas under the chin, around the mouth, the nose. So get a little cocktail stick and just make sure we get in there nicely. If you were going to leave this as it was, you'd have to just fill up level with the wood. When resin dries, it sinks in the middle slightly. But as we want it flush with the wood, we're going to have to overfill it. Obviously, we don't want to pour it too much in, and it's going to run off the side of the project. So just go a little bit steady. If you wanted to, you could wait 5-10 minutes and just let this thicken up a little bit. But for today, Phyllis is just going to go straight for it. I use these plastic party knife, forks and spoons. They're ideal because they do have a little lip on the end for when we get into the tighter areas. And we'll just let that run around by itself, open it along its way, like so. And we can just leave that for now, and we'll come back. Our important bits around the eyes here, so we want to make sure we get inside all those. Just make sure it gets into all those areas, like so. Same with all the rest of it. So in there, nice and quickly. We can just pop it, don't matter about any drips or anything. Remember, we're going to sand it all down afterwards. So we're not overly concerned about what kind of mess it makes at this moment in time. The main thing we've got to do is get all those little gaps. Also remember not to go crazy, just pour it all on and have it 1/4 inch thick at top. That is a lot of resin to sand down, and it does take a lot of sanding down, as you will see when we come to remove it all. So you get the general idea like that. We'll go along, fill this in. We'll do that eye as well there. Okay, and the same with the lettering. I'm going to fill all this lettering in. Basically just leaving it like that one there, just slightly overflowed, but enough that the resin stays in place. Same again, all this down here. And then we'll put it to one side and just let it set nicely. Okay, I'll finish this off and then come back when it's ready to put to one side. Right, you can see we've more or less filled that up. Now you can see all those lovely bubbles in the airline and all the lettering. So we need to get rid of those. For me, nice little cheap lighter, preferably one that works. And you just skim over the top and you'll see those bubbles disappearing. We'll do this over the full piece. I'll come back again in another 5 minutes or so and give it another running over. Obviously, as the air bubbles start to pop up from the resin. You get mini blow torches, there's chamber pots, pressure pots, there's different things that you can pop this into. This would be too big for a pot, to be honest. But for the small amount of projects that I do, cheap little lighter like that will do fine. There's another one. There's a bigger boy that I purchased. You do the same thing with that. Like so. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. And that's it. We'll just leave that for now. Notice how we've domed the lettering over like so. So we'll pop that to one side. I'll leave this for a couple of days. The smaller the pieces of resin, the longer it takes to cure. Bigger tables go off a lot quicker. Smaller items like this, I'll definitely leave it 48 hours plus. So we'll come back when it's ready and then we'll give it a nice sanding over, and hopefully this should stand out a lot better than what we can see at this moment in time. Okay, we'll come back in 48 hours. Right, it's been 2 or 3 days later. Now this is all nicely set. You can see from that, hopefully everything's nice and solid. The longer you can leave the resin, the better. They do say for a fully cured resin piece, it can take up to 30 days. I'm guessing they mean on these large tables and stuff. For these little projects, 2 or 3 days, I'll be quite happy to hang that up on the wall, no problem. But the longer you can leave it, the better. So I'm going to take a chance on 3 days with this one. So now we're just going to basically sand over all of this. Because we are sanding, we're going to lose that lovely shine. But at the end, I'll come with some boiled linseed oil just to darken it down. Brush a bit over the top just to see what it looks like. I've never put linseed oil on top of resin. Once it's dried, if it's not as shiny as we like it, I'm just going to simply put some clear resin over the top. Okay, now your sanders, I'll start off with a little mouse sander. It soon clogs up your papers, I can tell you now, and it's not an easy thing to sand off, so it's a bit of time and effort involved. But hopefully, once it's done, it should look okay. And if it's too slow, we'll bring out the big guns, get a nice new paper on that, 120 grit on both of these, and let's just skim over the top, and hopefully we'll have a better effect once it's all sanded off. Okay, let's start sanding this one down and see what we've ended up with. Okay, that's sanded off quite easily, to be honest. The little mouse sander was a waste of time, so I'd personally would use that at the end. But the belt sander, that kicked in really nice. So that's cleared all that off, no problem whatsoever. So quite pleased with that one. Now for me, as always, I just want to put some boiled linseed oil on, just to darken these sides and the top bit. We can go straight over the resin, it won't do any problem. And it'll look nice and shiny while it's on. But then we'll let it dry for a couple of days. I just want to see how this ends up. If it's got a nice finish on it, if it's okay, we'll basically just leave it at that. If not, we'll still go with our original clear resin to finish with. So there's our boiled linseed oil. And it's a case of just getting it on there. You can see how that lovely black paint, resin, should I say? Well, it is paint, it's acrylic paint. You can see how nice that comes through like so. And all that lovely lettering. But like I say, once it dries, I don't personally, I've not tried this is all new for me. We're all learning all the time. Once it dries, I don't think it's going to dry as nice as what you see now. I think it'll dry back down to the matte finish. And if that's the case, we always have a plan B. So I'll finish this off camera. I'll get all those sides done as well. Was there a nice coating, quick rag, and just dry it all off. And we'll come back when it's all nicely dried, and we'll see what the next step is as regards to what kind of finish. Right, it's a couple of days later. This boiled linseed oil dries really fast, so I've been known to spray on my varnish the day after. But we left it a couple of days. Now, to be honest, I'm quite pleased with that one. But you can see it's not quite got the shine I'm normally liking on my little projects. Now, I did say earlier on in the video that we're going to clear coat this with clear resin, just to make it nice and shiny. But just for my little peace of mind and a little experiment, I'm going to spray this with varnish. Now it could backfire big time. I did do a couple of samples. Here's one here. If you look on the left, that was just resin left as it was. And on this right hand side, I actually taped it with the varnish. Now you can see how matted and dull that's gone. And I actually did one yesterday, just to say that we're using the same varnish. It's not as bad. If you can just get it in the right light, just there, you can see how shiny the original one on the left hand side and how matted and dull this side is. Now in my thinking, I'm thinking that the varnish will send the shiny resin dull, or matty like that as I call it. So I'm hoping dull resin will go shiny. So shiny definitely went dull. Let's see if the dull goes shiny. If it doesn't work, we can simply just sand over it and then go back to our original story. So this is just a little test piece for me as well. Just simple yacht varnish, nothing fantastic. And we're basically just going to spray the full piece and we'll see what we've finished with. If it works out really good, that's another tick in the box for the next time we do another project. If it does backfire, we always have a plan B of some description, just to see how we go on. It's all trial and error. Sometimes you just best to try things out. If they don't work, it's no big loss, is it really? Just nice fun projects for me. Okay, we'll go outside and spray ourselves some varnish on, just yacht varnish today, and we'll see what it looks like. Excuse me, what it looks like when we come back. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now spraying the yacht varnish on top, that worked out fine. Just gave it a nice shine. As you can see from there, it's nice and smooth. So that's worked out fine. So for me personally, shiny resin went dull with the spray, and dull sanded down resin actually went more shiny. So we'll remember that for a future project. For hanging purposes, I'll just route out a little slit in the back or find a little small hook or some description, and that's it. This little project is finished. So it's 10 inches by 14 inches. It's routed and cut out on recycled pine. We use CNC bits to do all our lines with, remember, and end milling bits to do all the clear out. We then inlaid it with resin with black acrylic paint mixed in with it, quick sanding down, and then we put boiled linseed oil on, and then we sprayed it with a yacht varnish to finish with. And that's it. This little project is finished. Just nice, fun projects. Give it a go. Just enjoy what you're doing. Thank you very much for watching.